Hey, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to go fairly quickly because we only have, again, 15 to 20 minutes. I want you to have a view of what the cloud security looks like today and how Checkpoint CloudGuard is addressing that. And I want to start also by making a point of the main pillars, which is unified security, automated everywhere. I want to give quick examples about each one of these as we go along. I want you to understand that our CloudGuard solution is a unified solution that expands security in the cloud. We have built it to be fully automated. The native security in the title applies to a couple of things. Number one, we want to compare and make everybody aware how CloudGuard adds to the native security provided by the cloud providers themselves. But we also want you to know that the CloudGuard product line was built natively in the cloud for the cloud. So it plays in both worlds. The first thing that I want to talk about is how fast cloud is changing and what it means to keep up security-wise with it. Not very long ago, of course, everything was bare metal on physical data centers. Virtual machines came right after that. Immediately afterwards came containers because we needed to be able to run many versions of things fully transportable across VMs. Containers were just the start. We started moving to API and microservices where we can build very big applications using very little, very specific pieces of code that will integrate together, kind of like building a giant robot out of Legos, and having APIs be the glue that ties everything together. And finally, today, serverless is becoming more and more popular, where you don't even have a host to run these things. You're running everything using functions up in a private cloud. And this is something that has been happening in very little time. And whether you are still doing virtual machines or still doing bare metal, chances are that within 2 to 3 years, you're going to be playing with some or all of these puzzles. Now, the good news is even though containers and microservices and serverless are very different from bare metal hosts, the idea of security is still the same. We need to check posture, and by that I mean we need to make sure that our systems look like they're supposed to look. You don't have somebody in a classified network plugged by mistake into a public switch. You want to look at the workloads, the applications themselves, the tasks that are running inside of your systems. You want to look at what's going through your network and make sure that it's free of attacks and people are communicating with the things that they should be. And you want to look at the logs in an analytic fashion. You want to make sure, hey, did somebody circumvent my security? I want to be able to do forensics. I want to be able to do a baseline of analysis. But the bottom line is the pillars are still there, even though some of the players in the game have changed a bit. And I want to have this next slide talking about what CloudGuard means. People hear CloudGuard and they sometimes think it's a single product. CloudGuard is a line of products. It's a whole suite of products that is meant to address everything that's important in the cloud. At the base, or starting point, we have Cloud for Infrastructure. We have SASE models. On top of that, we have posture management that deals with the very unique control plane that you find in clouds. Then we're looking inside of work groups, container and serverless tasks. Then we're looking at things like API protection. And everything you see in this base of the pyramid, all this lower part, these are preventive technologies. They are meant to secure your system and avoid something bad happening in the first place. But at the very top, we of course have a cloud intelligence and threat hunting, and that is where that log analysis comes in. So this is not a preventive technology. By definition, a log is something that already happened. It's like seeing a video of a plane explosion. You cannot stop the plane from exploding, but seeing the videotape afterwards will tell you where the breakdown in security was. So you can use that log analysis at the very top to prevent bad stuff from happening again. But everything here in the bottom, the base of the pyramid, we're going to be talking about today, and how it all plays and interacts together. Again, CloudGuard, a suite of products that addresses pretty much all your needs in the cloud and integrates with a lot of the cloud technologies used today. We were talking about native cloud provider security, and cloud providers have a lot of security built in. These are some of the cloud security items provided by AWS, things like the NAT gateway, Macy for the DLP, their WAF for layer 7 inspection at the boundary, security groups, of course, very powerful. Maybe you are in Azure, and Azure has some extra tools that are very interesting. They have an Azure firewall. Their application gateway can do some nice things as an ingress controller and can actually do offloading of SSL. So there's a lot of powerful native tools that already come with the cloud, but they don't address everything that needs to be addressed. And when you add a third-party product like CloudGuard, then the whole picture sort of fills out. So you're still using your cloud provider security as a foundation of your security, or all those tools that the cloud provides, in many cases they're free or at a very nominal cost, are still there, and you can use them and leverage them. But at the same time, you're adding things and expanding the protection by putting a third-party product like CloudGuard. What type of protections? Glad that you asked. This is just off the top of my head, about 33 attack vectors or things that are not fully fleshed out on native security. If you want to map these to the pyramid, I figured I would pick a few and show you. For example, creating a baseline of behavior is part of the log analysis. Maybe deep inspecting TLS API calls is part of the API protection that we had here. Protecting serverless traffic, we saw here as part of the workloads protection. Making sure that somebody does not make changes to routing tables that we don't want, or making sure that orchestration scripts like from Terraform or CloudFormation are checked before they run, of course, are part of posture management. And things like preventing zero-day attacks, preventing people from tunneling inside of protocols that are allowed inside of the cloud, maybe removing or scrubbing malware from infected files. All that is part of this bottom piece for infrastructure. So again, all these pieces cannot be addressed by a single solution. Where next generation firewalls, which are the base here of the infrastructure, are great at stopping zero-day attacks or scrubbing files. They may not be perfectly for something like serverless. Serverless is just a snippet of code, a function like a Lambda function, an Azure function, something that runs without being attached to a host. It gets called and it does some activity that hopefully is the right activity that you want that serverless thing to do. But you cannot have a firewall attached to serverless traffic. So usually a next generation firewall is not enough. So we have to build these additional pieces to account for the speed and the changes that come with cloud. And same thing, while a firewall is great at preventing zero-day attacks, it has no way to know that a routing table has been changed to bypass a firewall, or doesn't know that we're running a Terraform script or an Ansible script to do something, and it has no way of checking it before it runs. So all these pieces are vulnerabilities that are not fully addressed by the native cloud, things like security groups, things like WAF gateways, but are nicely addressed by a third-party solution just as CloudGuard. I also want to mention that our solution is fully multi-cloud, whether you're in Google, whether you're in Oracle, whether you're in AliCloud, whether you're in AWS, whether you're in Azure. We have a security blueprint for assigning all the solutions that you saw on that pyramid and helping you secure the system. I have here a summary of the type of things that we add into the system, things like deep packet inspection, threat prevention, zero-day, full DLP, content awareness, expanded access control. Again, we talked about protecting serverless and containers. We do exposure analysis, audit, and reporting. We can enforce configurations in the cloud. We can do checks on GRC and governance and making sure that you are fully in line with federal, state, or industry regulations. And of course, we do that piece at the top for log enrichment, monitoring, and analytics. And we have auto remediation built into it, again, playing on that automation piece. Not only do we deploy and support fully automation orchestrated technologies like Terraform, we have auto remediation built into our products, and we can do a lot of automation in the cloud. And with that, I want to show you something very quick. This video shows basically how we automate the way we handle a scale set. It doesn't matter whether the scale set is in Azure, whether it's an auto-scaling group that's running in AWS. What you see here is an SSH session on a checkpoint management server that is connecting to Azure and AWS, and it's monitoring that network. And it's actually seeing what I just did, which is I just told my scale set to grow up by a couple of systems. So it's telling me, okay, there's nothing in my manager, but I'm seeing those scale sets. I don't have my SIG ports open yet. I'm waiting for the instance to be provisioned. And once we see an open SIG, then the manager automatically adds that scale set member. I am not doing this. This is the manager logged into Azure, monitoring an AWS, a GCP, monitoring for changes, seeing a scale set come up, and immediately starting to configure systems, pushing policy to it, and everything is automated from the manager itself. Now, this is different from other competing vendors in the sense that if you look at the competing vendors, you'll see that they're asking you to use Lambdas, or they're asking you to use DynamoDB. They're asking you to use S3 buckets in order to automate deploying a scale set in the cloud. We don't use any of that. The entire automation is controlled by the checkpoint manager, whether it's being deployed in Azure, in AWS, in both at the same time. We don't use native Azure automation or AWS automation or support services. All the automation is built into our manager. So from a single manager, you can coordinate automation everywhere. And that includes things like configuration scripts that may be doing things like making sure your objects in your smart center are a particular color, making sure that your gateways, once deployed, can connect to a radio server. So you can do a lot of automation and configuration just using the tools that are part of the management server. I want to talk a little bit about unified because people have been hearing that a lot from vendors. We can do everything from a single portal. Now we have a lot of products in that pyramid, right? There's a lot of piece parts. And one of the things that we have, of course, is the Checkpoint Infinity portal. I don't know if anybody has seen it, but it actually includes interactions with every single checkpoint system that protects items either on the cloud or outside of the cloud. So we are truly building a fully integrated one place to check for everything. Whether that is the management, I'm sorry, my management got disconnected, but if you see, I'm not running this from Smart Console. I'm running this management from the Infinity portal. It's just a tab in my system. I can go to logs and monitor, or I can manage all my systems. Everything that you will expect from my management is there. And as well is our posture management solution. I wanted to start at the dashboard because it's very unique to us. We can configure the dashboard to show us just the things that we want. So everything that you see here is fully customizable, and we can build our own dashboards that are showing just what's important to us. If that happens to be, for example, Kubernetes, then we can switch to that. But everything that you see here is fully configurable, and every single user can pick and see what's important for them in a particular cloud system to see. We can do things like automatically protect regions that you never go into. Most people go into Azure, they go into AWS, they may never deploy something in Cape Town or Frankfurt. They will pick specific regions and go there. Our system will monitor those regions for you. And if you do a region lock, it'll make sure that nobody deploys something without your consent in a region that you would never go into otherwise. If you're in multiple clouds, and a lot of people are, you can have from a single place the ability to change and modify security groups in multiple accounts, in multiple clouds, in multiple regions from a single place. Even if you're in AWS or Azure, you cannot see all your security groups from multiple regions, from multiple subscriptions, from multiple AWS accounts on a single console, but you can on CloudGuard Posture Management. We can see here security groups that belong to Azure accounts, that belong to AWS accounts, different AWS accounts in different regions. And we can actually make changes to all these security groups in multiple clouds in multiple regions, in multiple accounts at one time. So I can create an IP list of administrators and automatically add that list to every single security group that we can manage from inside of our system. And it's up to you to define which ones do you manage or not. And once you decide to manage from here, you're locking out management from the console. So somebody that has access to AWS or Azure, but outside of the common management portal, cannot come in and overwrite the things that you did. We, of course, do compliance, and I talked about this, where we can see where your compliance to federal and state, but even more importantly is the ability to write your own rules. That is crucial. You want to make sure that whether your cloud is FedRAMP compatible or GDPR or PCI compatible, it's compatible with the things that are important to you. The servers that get deployed have the name of the administrator that's in charge of them. The things are shut down or not. And we have probably the easiest language that you've ever seen. I'm going to do a very quick example of a competing language. Somebody asked a competing product, hey, I want to look at security groups that are exposed on port 22, but only the ones that have a resource associated with them. The answer was, oh, we can't do that. You can get sort of close using this. And we see here multiple variables when internet gateways are Y and EC2s are Z and security groups are X. You can do that particular GSL that you just saw, you can do that particular query using GSL in just one line. And it's very, very clear. And it will immediately find the security groups that actually are open on port 22 and that don't have count 0 for assets in it. And if we go here and look at the non-compliance, we're gonna see that indeed we find something that has port 22 open to the world, and look, it has things attached to it. Last 2 minutes on serverless. Serverless, we talked about, cannot be usually protected by regular firewalls. We can do full scanning of the serverless code. We can look for vulnerabilities. We can harden the code. We can operate as a firewall that's sort of operating or running at the same time by having our own serverless code run at the same time. We can diagnose if you're putting too much role access into a particular thing. We can tell you if there's code injection attacks or or credentials that are embedded into the system. And finally, I talked about logic, which is looking at the things that have already happened. We can give you a visual representation, not only of what connected to what, but also of who connected to what and did what. So you can actually click on a user and find out exactly what activity they did against the specific asset that they did that activity with. And with that, I'm going to rest and pass it on to to my partner in crime, Mark.
Hey, thanks, Gus. No, great job.
You want me to stop sharing? Sorry.
Yeah, you can stop sharing.
Okay.
So Gus, I have a couple on the spot questions for you.
I'm here.
So the first question I have is you kind of talked about Ansible and Terraform.
Yes.
And templates. So what type of resources do we have available for folks that can get access to these templates and perhaps Terraform scripts? Like where, do we have things on GitHub? Do we have things on our website? Can you give a little bit of visibility to that?
Yes, there's a couple of places that I would go to start on this. Definitely, we have GitHub pages where we have templates and examples, and we can make that a distribution to people that have joined here. We have, as part of the documentation from, for example, posture management, how you can use Terraform in order to orchestrate our tools. And of course, there's Checkmates. If you belong to Checkmates, or even if you don't, you should. You can hear of other users that are discussing these technologies with Checkpoint engineers, and examples get posted all the time.
Yeah, that's a great point, Gus. So anybody who's joined us, whether you're a Checkpoint customer or not, definitely jump on the Checkmates. It's a great forum that is used by our users with direct R&D input, direct input from folks like Gus that help answer questions or provide solutions for automation and things like, Gus kind of just went over. The second question, Gus, that I have, a little bit of a layup question, but it's good for folks who have not seen portal.checkpoint.com. Obviously, anybody with an active user center with Checkpoint or evaluation can create an account on portal.checkpoint.com. But specifically, if a customer wanted to take a peek at their Azure or AWS environment and do some cloud posture, management and visibility, what's the first step they should do to kind of kick off a demo or to get some visibility into their existing cloud infrastructure?
The link for our posture management solution is fairly straightforward, and it sort of guides you. So when you go to our site, then basically it's going to be secure.dom9.com. You can actually create an account that will give you access to a lot of the product. But if you're talking to a Checkpoint SE or a sales associate, we can open the entire full gamut of enterprise solutions for you. You can play as much as you want. You can enroll as many accounts as you want. You can try logic analysis. You can try serverless protection. You can try all of these technologies at your own pace. We sort of help you go along.